Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Battlefield Project podcast. I'm your host, Matthew Rhoda, and I'm joined by my good friend here, Jeff Smith, who I'm going to introduce in a moment. But before I do, let me remind you that we are the podcast for people who understand that life is a battle and only the strong will thrive. The whole gist of this podcast is to bring on guests on our show to talk about some battles that they have experienced in life and what they did to fight their way through those battles, which now allows them to lead and live the good life that they have. I want everybody out there to know that nobody goes through life untouched. Every single one of us has battles that we must face on a daily, weekly, yearly basis. The successful, happy people in the world are the ones who fight their way through those battles, as opposed to playing the victim card and living that unfulfilled, unhealthy life. So without further ado, let me read Jeff's bio here real quick. Jeff is a business owner, real estate investor, and performance coach. After leaving a long career for a Fortune 50 company and owning a gym for over a decade, he ventured back into real estate investing after a 5-year hiatus. He has built a personal portfolio of over 40 properties in the last 3 years and serves as a general partner on another 27-unit apartment value add rehab as well. He's looking to continue to grow his portfolio in the single family and small multi-unit space. He has coached hundreds of entrepreneurs and leaders in business throughout the last 6 years of consulting, and also runs 2 high-level mastermind groups focused on maximizing your performance in life and business while generating legacy wealth through investing. He is a U.S. Army veteran who has served honorably within special operations in the 2nd Ranger Battalion, and he currently resides in Houston, Texas with his wife and 4 children. Jeff, brother, thanks for being here, man, and thank you for your service.
Absolutely, Matthew. Thanks for having me, man.
My pleasure.
Really appreciate it. I'm excited.
Absolutely, man. So yeah, the light's on you, the ball's in your court. If you want to share a battle or two that you've experienced in life and then how you fought your way through that, I'm sure it's going to be value driven and the audience will be inspired by it, man.
Well, yeah, man. I think that when you mentioned that topic, I think that it's something that I talk about with my buddies quite frequently. But one of the things, I think it's a great opportunity to highlight the veteran community specifically, because I mean, I come out of special operations. I grew up with a lot of hard chargers, served with a lot of people that are super successful these days. I mean, I'm personal friends with Matt Best and a couple of the other Black Rifle Coffee guys. They run multiple billion-dollar businesses at this point who have went public. Vince Vargas, who's on the Sons of Anarchy series. One of the things I really want to highlight with this, though, is because you're talking about struggle, is that I think oftentimes the veteran community is cast in a light of like, woe is me, and this victim culture because of the suicide rates and things like that you see. But what you don't see and that they don't highlight well is those of us that are out here being incredibly successful post-service. And so I'm excited about this opportunity because my journey hasn't been a smooth one at all, but it's been one that we have stayed on course with over time, and it's bearing fruit at this point in time. But when you talk about, I got out of the military in 2004. We did the Iraqi invasion. I enlisted right after 9/11, so I was in 2001 to 2004. And I served in 2nd Ranger Battalion. It was a high-speed, high operations environment at that point in time. Our job was to kill, capture, eliminate, whatever, high-value targets. So if you remember, like the deck of cards, yep, that type of thing, those are the missions we were running. And that environment, obviously, is a highly charged, dopamine-induced environment. And you come out of it, and I came out of it and I went straight into the corporate world with very little time to transition. And then 2 of my teammates subsequently got killed in Iraq after I transitioned out on a mission in 2006. And those were my roommates that came up with me. But so I've dealt with a lot of the transition stuff. And then understanding that like you couldn't be polar opposites in an environment of operations than what I was doing in 2004 and then what I got thrown into in 2005. Let's say I had 6 weeks to go to my corporate job, or 6 months to go to my corporate job after transitioning out of the military. I took like 6 days or something and was stuck in a cubicle in khakis and a button-up shirt for the next 4 years, better part of 4 years, 3 years. But that corporate job literally just ground away at me. It was the worst experience, not the people, not anything about it, but just the mundane nature of like corporations and the golden handcuffs of like, they give you just enough to keep you happy and keep you paid and give you just enough of a raise to make you feel somewhat significant, but you don't understand how much control you don't have. And so the underlying like stirring within me caused a lot of issues, right? And so, I mean, I dealt with all the different things that you deal with transitioning out of the military, like survivor's guilt, like the wars were still going on and were obviously hot and heavy during that time. And so you're missing out on these things. I got injured is why I got out. So I had an injury that required surgery with a year's rehab, and I was unable to stay in my unit. I was given the choice to take a desk job and stay in special operations, rehab for a year, 18 months, which is literally like the worst position you could have. Like your buddies are doing cool shit and you're there pushing papers for a minute. So that, or go out to the civilian world, transition out, do my rehab, and like take a job I had waiting for me. So I said, I've done my piece. Like I'm heading out to this job. And so like that was the backstory. But then like every day you live with the regret of like what you could have been doing. So like as you drive to work every day on Groundhog Day, doing the same shit over and over again, where you're really kind of insignificant, whether you do great or whether you do mediocre. In the corporate world, as large of a corporation as I worked for, like it's very insignificant.
Yeah.
Once you're in that size of organization, you really understand like that you're just a cog. And so what that, I'm not saying that led to anything, but I did not work through all the mental side of things that I needed to. But throughout that time, I continued to grow my skills. And so like that, I think this is where most people miss the mark when they're feeling sorry for themselves or feeling down. Like they don't understand the opportunity that they have in every single thing that is put in front of you. Like I was able to, as much as I hated that job, right? It was a good job that paid the bills and put money in my savings account. And so I started planning. I reverse engineered what I needed to do to exit that situation or put myself in a better situation. But I also took advantage of all the things that are good about being with a big corporation and learning and development and R&D that you can take advantage of, skill acquisition that you can take advantage of. So I really spent that time just building myself within that organization. And as miserable as I was focused on my growth. But that allowed me to then take the leap. When I was 26, I bought an apartment complex, a 7-unit apartment complex. That was the first piece of real estate I bought besides my personal residence. And then I came down to Houston in 2008 and I opened a gym shortly after that. A brick and mortar gym while I was still working for this corporation. Okay. So I had apartments, single family rentals, and a brick and mortar gym while I was still working for this corporation. And so the thing that was special about that time is that what I did was I found a way to utilize every tool at my disposal, I guess, yep, and really kind of bend them to my advantage. Yep. And so I was able to stack these assets and I was able to create cash flowing businesses under the umbrella of my corporate job and then create an exit from that position as well. And so by the time they told me that I had to relocate back to Illinois from Houston, we declined the relocation package. Yeah. And then it was on into real estate investing. And so I tell that long belabored story to tell you that like there's not enough examples out there of the successful people that come out of the military and go about their business and just lead great lives,
Yeah.
raise families, things like that. And so I don't have a profound story, but like, I mean, that's our story of kind of perseverance and just dealing with all the different aspects of things, regardless of what was going on.
Yeah. It's interesting for you to share that perspective because you're exactly right. Like you always, I forget what it's like, how many suicides per minute or something. It's like the 22, like do the 22 push-up challenge because there's so many suicides per, what is it, per minute or per day, or like
it's per day,
per day.
something.
Yeah.
It's wrong, but yeah,
But
the
that's
numbers.
like, that's what you hear over and over and
Yeah.
over again is people serve, they come back, their mentality and psyche is destroyed. They can't figure out how to transition back to civilian life, and devastation and devastation, devastation. And it like, and not to say that, that's, let's discredit that because it's not important. Of course it is. And like, how do we fix that problem is a totally different conversation topic.
Sure.
But you don't hear what you just shared, which is incredible, which is like how many people are going over there and serving their country and dealing with all the chaos that they're dealing with, same as the other people who come over and struggle, but coming over and using that to build a really, really good life for themselves. And even like, and still having to deal with, I'm sure, like you said, the survivor's guilt and all that stuff is all part of the story, but not letting that become their whole story, which like gets you to a negative finish line way quicker than it should be. It's a really, I don't think I've ever heard anybody share something like that. It's a really cool shift.
Well, I don't think enough people know. Like the guys I work with in special operations, we work with the SEALs, Delta Force. I was in Ranger Battalion, but I mean, we ran joint operations with those guys, and I have never been around a smarter group of individuals. Yeah. And some of the people that came out of there have built the most amazing businesses, built the most amazing philanthropic organizations. Yeah. But a lot of them aren't loud and flashy, and so you don't see what they're doing or you don't know their story. Now, outside of Black Rifle, those guys they've built their mission on serving the veteran community, and so that was a brilliant play on their part. But I mean, those guys are also brilliant individuals and brilliant creators. Yeah, like the guys who ran with that are incredible businessmen too. And so, but I could name a million people like that have come out and done amazing things and that run great organizations, and other guys that you may not know about, obviously, that run construction companies and shit like that have gone out and made multiple 7-8 figures for their family and live very nice lives. Yeah. I mean, the thing about, like, I think it's a personality like that is drawn to that community more than anything. So when you're coming up and what you have to go through and persevere to get there, and the attrition rate that is aligned with those units, like there's something about the wiring of the brain that we're all problem solvers, and we're all very direct, and we're resilient. And so when you put those on top, overlay that to an entrepreneur, that's a skill set that everyone needs to get through the entrepreneurial journey. And so for me, it's not a surprise that many people come out of the military and that they can be successful in the entrepreneurial world. Yeah. A lot of the people in the special operations unit are just like me, which is like anti-authority as well. And that's why we showed up over there, because we didn't want told what to do. Yeah. Like if we had to go to a regular unit, then you get in line, you march like a cog, you do what you're supposed to do. Not that we didn't do any of that. So I'm not saying, I'm not shitting on anybody. Yeah. Everybody has their own roles. But I feel like the group that I worked with more than anything is a collective group of like counterculture personalities. Yeah. And which also lends itself to being a great entrepreneur, because you trust yourself to make decisions. You don't necessarily go where the flow of everyone else is going. Yeah. And you don't have to wait for the like perfect conditions to jump in. Like you guys in battle, it's like, okay, there's going to be no such thing as perfect conditions, but like we got to go. So go and figure it out as you're fighting your way through it. Same thing as entrepreneurship. It's like if you wait for all the green lights, you're going to be sitting in your parked car for the rest of your life, because you're never going to get a whole string of green lights ahead of you. Yes, exactly. Yeah, I know you're so we're friends on Instagram. Like I see your story, so I know we're wired very similar in terms of like questioning this narrative and stuff. And you say, and I don't know if we need to dive into this, but I'll tell you, like my wheels are spinning right now. I'm like,
why is it that like the story that we're all told is those like they come back and they kill themselves, they come back and it's tragedy? Like, why is that the mainstream narrative that everybody is like shown and absorbs when it comes to you do this, then you go here, and this is what happens, as opposed to let's like flip that coin over and like start have this media and everybody start looking as, yeah, you go like to war and you're a soldier and you serve your time, but you like you come back and there's as great of a chance or even maybe a better chance of you succeeding in the civilian life because of the lessons you learned in the military. Like I said, like you sharing that, I'm like, I've never really heard it said like that. And I'm like, why the fuck haven't I heard it said like that? Like, why is it that the story that's told over and over and over again, you know, to the masses is serve home tragedy, serve home tragedy, as opposed to serve home major success? Like, you know, I can't like put my finger on
The last generation, because they've seen it.
Okay.
This is, we might go down a rabbit hole here.
Let's
because okay, so like World War II veterans came home, and how were they recognized?
Heroes.
Okay. Vietnam veterans came home, and how were they recognized?
Same.
No, opposite.
Okay.
Opposite. Villains. Like the morale was very different in the United States. But World War II veterans came home and they built industry, they built manufacturing.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was the Industrial Revolution back then, and so like they were needed, big, strong bodies to execute on the jobs, right?
Yeah.
I believe that the reason that it's done is to demoralize a segment of the population that they don't want getting too empowered.
Okay.
And if you think about it, if your story that you're told constantly is that you're broken and your buddies are going to kill themselves, you're going to kill themselves, and they're pumping pills in you from the VA left and right.
Yeah.
Like if you have 100 men and you're told, and you pipe that into their ears daily, like how many of the men, when they hit adversity, are going to say, you know what, I might be broken. You know what, like I believe the narrative. So it's going to start peeling off a percentage of people.
Yep. Then
you throw in the drugs that they put you on in the VA. If you have any issues, like then that peels off another segment, right?
Yep.
Like,
then all of a sudden, at the end of the day, those 100 strong men who are like strong men are now, something happens and there's 5 of them that are willing to step up and stand up and do what's right, because 95 of them have had their morales shattered and spirits broken. So now those in control are like, sweet, we only have to deal with 5 strong dudes as opposed to 100 strong dudes. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's psychology and like sociology.
Yeah.
Mixed in one. Because if you have 100 guys, you do that, you peel off 34% of them with like just negative talk and pharmaceuticals that throw them off. Then the middle segment of the population is adjusting. They're doing things they're not proud of or shameful, like their activities. So they lose confidence in themselves and their ability to lead. So out of the top end of that 100, you've only got fucking like 13 leaders left.
Yeah.
And like, so if something happens, like how many strong leaders do you have in your community?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's partially what's disappointing with what's going on right now, is that like we've fought for 20 years and there's a lot of people with a lot of experience. Most of us are just sitting here going, leave us the fuck alone. And like, and so that's all really anybody wants. But ultimately, I think that there are enough capable people, like you see all the time. They're definitely trying to demoralize the younger population right now with like, hey, you guys are fat and unhealthy. And like, I read something the other day, only like 1 in 7 men that are military age could qualify for the military today in the US. Yeah. And I mean, like 60 years ago, that was like completely unheard of. It was 7 out of 7. Yeah. And so I mean, I don't know. You could go down the rabbit hole of why that is. I think it's to ensure that they're not sending home 100,000 troops that become 100,000 leaders in their communities.
Yeah.
Because well, I mean, honestly, what we're creating is freedom for ourselves and our families, because the more money you have, the more freedom of thought you have,
Yep.
and the more freedom of movement you have. Like, they can't control you.
Yep.
And like, people shit on money all the time, man, and I think money is just a tool, and the more money you get, the more options you have, and I am a person that loves options. And so and ultimately that's what my group is all about. I'm trying to empower those guys and say, listen, you guys need to recognize like what's going on, and you need to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. Like, if you want to send your kids to private school and it's $40,000, I expect you to be able to go out and get that shit.
Yeah.
So that you can send your kids to private schools and have that choice.
Yeah.
And I want men that want that of themselves. Yeah. And so, because I think it's vitally important to do that, because you can't tell me you're going to send your kid on the bus to get his ass kicked, or like go to public school and the teachers are doing stuff and your hands are tied and you can't do anything because you got to go to work. Like, that's not an answer to me.
Yep.
And so I don't know. I went off on a tangent there.
No, but you answered the question for sure. And as you're saying it, I'm like, why did I even ask the question? Like, of course that's what they're doing. Of course that's like the intent behind it all.
Because I think we're staunchly free spirits.
Yeah.
And like, we don't want to be chained down, but there are ways to make us slip up, trip up, to where we doubt ourselves, to where we're ashamed of what we've done, to where we're like
unsure of what we could do.
We lose our power.
Yep.
And so, and those are all tools, like pharmaceuticals, alcohol, drugs, women, all that shit. Like, the more they can push any of that shit on you, right? Yep. It's like the porn thing that everybody's talking about now, and like how it's going to ruin our next generation of men because they're on it now, like by the time they're 12.
Yeah.
And it's the ramifications that come along with it. That's just one more fucking thing that you could throw in a pot of 50 others.
Yeah. Yeah. On that point, I don't know, like, I go on Instagram and it's like every third fucking ad, or not even know if it's an ad, every third thing I see is some chick with her tits hanging out bouncing. Yeah. I'm like, I don't follow you. Like, how did I get? And I like, after like a while, I'm like, my wife's over here, I'm over here scrolling. I'm like, tits again. I'm like, what the? So I'm like, hell, and I'm like, look at this. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm not doing anything. I'm like, they're forcing it into my psyche. And like, you unfollow it, you say, report this and other accounts like this. So you try to do what you can do to eliminate. And like, 2 hours later, back on, it's more tits. And I'm like, what the fuck? And so I was talking to my buddies and I'm like, as a grown man who's married and happy and like secure, like, I scroll right past it. I delete it. I scroll right past it. Like, it annoys the shit out of me that it's there and that they're.
But if you were 14,
I said, my buddy, I'm a 12-year-old little kid, like little boy I'm like, sweet. Like, I didn't have to look for it. Like, this is so cool. And the damage that's doing to their own psyche, like the expectation of relationships in the future, like all of it. And then now again, like down the rabbit hole, like that kid's going to have a hard time, like having a healthy relationship with another woman. He's probably not going to build a healthy family because of that 12-year-old psyche being totally distorted and thwarted. Like, it's a constant assault on the human, like, evolution of goodness at this point. I'm like, how?
Yeah. And if you think about the fact that your brain is developing until you're 26 years old, and men, like, that's over half their life if they hit that shit at 12, 13 years old, man. Like, the dopamine receptors are just burnt up. If you watch like Huberman Labs, Dr. Huberman is like a guy to check out. And then Doc Amen, spelled like amen, like that dude, they do a lot of brain studies. They do a lot of like sociology studies on like what's going on in society and how it affects your brain and also our overall health in general. Fascinating stuff though, regarding that stuff.
I want to have a podcast with you, man, just to go down the rabbit hole. Because like I said, I watch all your stories. I'm like, this dude's sharing exactly what like I think about, talk to my friends about, share occasionally. I'm like, it's so obvious to me and guys like him that like, why isn't the world seeing this for what it is? So I appreciate
people just don't believe you. You're right about the Instagram shit, dude. It's an algorithm and it's driven by somebody that has motives that aren't good
at all.
But most people don't recognize it or notice it because they're like, oh, I click. Like for me, I owned a gym for 11 years. So there's chicks working out in sports bras and shit in my feed all the time. And it's really hard to get away from that shit. If you're in the fitness space and you're posting about fitness. I mean, still to this day, that's one of the pillars in our mastermind group, fitness and health. And so like it's a hashtag on my posts and stuff like that. So they drive shit like that at me. But most people just don't believe that that's actually being done
intentionally.
I know. And so it's wild. I made a quote this morning actually, which was a quote from 1984, the book. So I'm with you on that. Whenever you want to go down the rabbit hole, man, let's do it.
I'm down. I also want to rent an RV and just travel like you guys do. Like I admire you guys. Like I admire you, your wife and your kids, man, the life that you've created for yourselves and the lifestyle you have. It's impressive. I don't know if I'll ever do an RV because I don't know if my wife's down with that, but like the freedom that I see you guys experience, the happiness, like in your kids, you don't talk like a ton and share a ton about them, but like, in the photos and like just the experiences you guys give them and stuff. You're at the top. You're the epitome of like, okay, this is what a family unit should look like. This is the leadership that a man and woman should have in a family. So just keep doing what you're doing, man, because you're inspiring people for sure.
Man, I appreciate that. Thank you, Matthew.
Absolutely.
That means a lot, dude.
No, it's easy for me to say because it comes from the bottom of my heart, man. So Jeff, where before we start opening up other topics of conspiracy theories and all that fun stuff, man, we'll cut it off here, but where can people find you online if they want to connect with you, learn from you?
Instagram, Real Jeff Smith. And then I'm Jeff at therealjeffsmith.com is an email address you can hit me up at. Instagram's probably the easiest. Just shoot me a DM in there. My name's Jeff Smith, so it's hard to fucking find me on Facebook, but I am on there. I'm a creator on there. So shoot me a message however you can find me. I run the Tactical Empire podcast, and you can check that out as well. I kind of teach and preach on how to reverse engineer the lifestyle that you desire and live in an RV on the road and still have money coming in and shit like that. So
beautiful, man.
Hit me up if you need anything at all. I'm happy to help anyone and everyone.
Awesome, man. Thank you. Thank you for being here, brother. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate what you're doing in the world. If you watch this episode and you got some value out of it, which I know you have, if you start to finish here, please share with a friend or family member. Especially I feel like this one would be great to share with someone that's in the military or out of the military, because it's just that shot of inspiration that someone might need to hear that came out of the military and is struggling, based on, again, what we talked about with like the constant flood of negativity that they're supposed to be experiencing. Let Jeff be the shining light for them to say like, okay, wait a minute, like there is a better way out there. He knows other guys who are making a better path for themselves. So please share it with someone out there. Let's light their light up and light their life up and help change the world for the better place, man. Jeff, thanks, brother. I appreciate it, man.
Same, brother. I appreciate you.
I'll see you on the
Have
battlefield.
A good weekend.
Yep.